Welcome back to another edition of The Rabbit Descending Down the Hole. So, today we're going to talk about how Moses built a civilization. I think you're going to find this quite interesting. I really, truly do. This is not an easy task, not for anybody. Think about this, okay? They come out of Egypt, right? They really don't have any foundations. The only foundations they have is the Egyptian way of life. So, number one, you have to address that. Okay? There's no sanitation, there's no medical knowledge, there's no refrigeration. That's a big thing when you think about food. I mean, take your fridge away for a couple of days, you know? Wow. um, no legal courts, there's no police, there's no civic structure, there's hygiene practices probably have to be looked at again. And I mean, think about it. In the law, I mean, think about how many times do your parents say, wash your hands, stuff like this. And we take that by, well, that's what our parents told us, and the parents, because the doctors told them, stuff like that. Where did that all start? That actually started in the law, believe it or not. Wash your hands and your feet. Something as basic as that. And for some reason, some people have like real issues with this. I don't know why. Anyway, there's no settling disputes. How do you settle disputes and things like this? Um, there's no like constitution as far as how the nation should exist. There's none of that. And Moses is set with the task of building all of that. Oh, wow. Okay. No wonder why he would get frustrated with these people. I mean, that is a lot on somebody's plate. Think about that. How much that would be on your plate to basically start Western civilization. No stress. I mean, think about it. So, it's the Ten Commandments, which are the base, and then everything kind of flows out of that. Okay? And do not murder, do not covet, do not, commit adultery, things of this nature. I mean, the number one is, worship God and honor God. You know, put Him first, and all these things kind of fall into place. So, but also understand these are practical instructions. All right, these aren't like just weird spiritual things. Honor thy father and the mother. You know, even if you don't like them, I mean, honor their position. You know, but hygiene. Let's just talk about hygiene for a second. Washing your hands, washing your clothes, how you deal with people that are sick. Things of like this nature. Basic public health. Where the sanitation? Where do you put all the waste? Humans make a lot of waste. Oh my gosh. It is kind of phenomenal. Make sure that it goes out of the city, away from the population, away from the food sources. You know how many diseases are just in that alone? A lot. Just in human waste alone. How many diseases are stopped? When you get this stuff away from you. It's really quite fascinating. Let alone any virus or anything that you pick up. How do you deal with that? I mean, all these things are the functions of society, and all these things are brought up. Now, the kosher part. This was a big debate. I mean, think about this. They told them to keep kosher. Now, some of that was because there was no refrigeration. They had their ways of preserving food. I mean, salt was a big thing. It still is a big thing. Salt preserves everything to an extent. And, there's things that last longer, like pure honey, pure mustard, things like this. I mean, they pretty much last forever. But, having food laws so that you don't get food poisoning, so you don't get sick, so you don't get these things. Those are all things that are in that law. And I know people, they'll say, well, later on, when Paul goes, and I mean, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. I mean, there's 3 chapters on this in the Book of Acts about that one issue, and Jesus' brother James, and Paul gets credit with it a lot of times, but Jesus' brother James is the one that actually makes that decision, and it's like, you don't have to keep kosher to be a Christian. This is a major sticking point for this new group that's coming in. But there's practical things within it as far as how to deal with bacteria and things like that. So, you want to keep kosher, fine, but understand that our practices are better today. But do understand this with that. 100 years ago, the food sources in this country, in first world societies, were pretty bad. And do a food history search on the internet. It's quite interesting just how bad things were. And even still today, I mean, we use way too many chemicals in this country, but I'm not going to get into all that. But it's, there's a lot to it. Marriage laws. Who do you marry? Think about this. Think about the Old Testament. That there are people that marry their first cousins. This kind of was like a standard practice. Can you imagine marrying your first cousin? Today, no. Not in Western society. However, in Islam, in the Middle East, do you know that first cousin marriage is like 50%? It's really high. It's phenomenally high. There's a couple things that are with that. I mean, it's how they keep wealth in the family. It's how they, with the dowries and things like that. This idea of the pure bloods type stuff, which elites got into in Europe, this whole pure blood thing. It's just wild stuff, And there's this element that it's easier because they're family, you already know them. At this point, God addresses this issue. Don't do it, right? Gotta understand. Now, yeah, in the beginning there wasn't as many people on the planet and things like this, so yeah, it kind of made sense. But and still, you have the DNA that's getting deformed and things like this, and as you go on, it causes more problems. So you have that issue, right? But also take the gospel out. Even back then, even with the law, to bring people into this through conversion, you have to marry outside of the family to bring people in, bring more families in, and bring, there's this element, so, and now it's mentioned in there. And we know about Sodom and Gomorrah. People know about that. They know that story. But, believe it or not, this whole man-boy love stuff, is more prevalent than people. Pedophilia has been more rampant in history than you realize. Today, Afghanistan is it's pretty heavy over there. It's surprising. And you would think, well, the Taliban controls it, and gay people, they just throw them off buildings. That they do. That they absolutely do. You can be beheaded. But a person under the age of 16 is not considered a man. And this is their technicalities of how they get out of it. And they're called bachi boys. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Look, yeah, you get a chance to look that up. It's pretty wild. There are soldiers that are over there tell stories about this stuff, and they're like, "What is this?" And it was never addressed because, well, it's just a cultural thing. Well, see, that's the problem. That's the problem. All right, this is not our culture. This is not our God. Remember, I was talking about the immigration. This is not our God. This is not our culture. This is not our value system. The worship part. Who do you worship? You know, keep the Sabbath, keep it holy, remember the Lord your God, things of this nature. Who is your God? Who are you following? Who is influencing you? This is a big deal. Who is influencing you? Who is influencing your value system with the society that we are creating, with your family that we're creating? Who do you want to follow? Do you want this God that has a practicality to him and he wants to show you a better way of living, how to have a better life, a peaceful life? Prosperous meaning contentment, doesn't mean everybody's going to be a millionaire, but it means that you're going to have, you're going to be taken care of, right? Jesus equated to look at the birds in the air and things like this. No, the birds in the air, they didn't have, mega mansion nest, but they were always taken care of, and that's where kind of God lands you, So anyway, there's so much stuff. There's a lot of stuff about money in the Bible. There's a lot. Money is how we transact with each other, how we interact with each other in the marketplace. Economics, the whole concept of economics is how people interact with each other in the marketplace. It's not just money per se, it's how people interact with each other. And how these things all kind of come together. I mean, if you've ever heard about a pencil is very interesting because not only are you to make a pencil, think about all the elements that go into that. You have the wood, you have the lead, you have the rubber, you have someone that puts it together, you have the tin, that puts a little eraser on. Then you have the person that takes that, distributes it to the store that sells it all to get it to you for that pencil. That's a lot of effort. So each one of those elements, how they all play together, is economics. All right. Well, anyway, there's the base 10, 16, and 13. Go around that, and Jesus takes it. He narrows it down to 3. Love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. And they all kind of interconnect. But the problem is, you got like this new age or hippie stuff. Why not love? We're just gonna love. But really, what they mean by love is more like obsession or more like lust. I mean, really. Just be peaceful and kind, dude. It's all cool, right? But that's not love, because love doesn't do these things, Your freedom shouldn't compromise my freedom, There are boundaries, there are things, and there are decisions that are made. That's what keeps it in the framework of love, It doesn't mean that there's not mercy and that there's not grace, but there is a structure to the whole thing. There is a moral structure, there is a society structure, and things of this thing. You don't just tolerate everything. You don't, because then it comes back to the who is your God. It says love God. Remember, this is a check and balance system, And notice how loving yourself is part of that, and taking care of yourself, not holding on to things so that you can kind of push forward and not let things drag you down, or getting involved in things that, are basically toxic to you, as they say. So there's many things that are learned here, and I'm hoping you're getting something out of this, because there is so much more to it. I'm not saying that you have to follow the law, but it's there for our learning. As Paul writes, it's there for our learning. Yes, we live under grace as the church and things of this nature, but it's there for our learning, and we should learn from it. We should learn how Western civilization, Western society, how the modern society exists based on these things, and what we can pull from them and what we can learn from them, what we can go forward with to keep these things. Okay? That's the main point. And that's a big point. So I'll see you in the next one. We're coming to the end of Moses, but I hope you enjoyed it so far. See you soon.